Well, 2025 was a year. Not necessarily a good one, but also not bad. A lot happened this year, and I can't say if I'm stronger for it yet. And even so, I didn't actually play as many video games as I did last year. Or at least ones new to me. We'll get to that. Nonetheless, it's still Game of the Year time, and while we're going to talk about games that came out this year, it's going to be a lot of games that did not come out this year. But I think that's realistic for this kind of thing.
That being said, let's start the top 10 with, well, a remaster that came out this year. Even if it's really a remake.
So I've never finished the original Raido Kuzunoha vs. the Soulless Army, because it's not actually a very fun game to play, combat-wise. However, this remake changes the entire battle system, and lets this game shine like it really needs to. Explaining the plot of this game is unnecessary. Any attempt to do so would just sound like me going all over the place. But it sets itself up with exploring the dangers of nationalism, the cruelty of an unjust legacy, and a mystery that culminates in an incredible finale that's worth the ride alone. Absolutely recommend this version of the game over the original. It's one of those situations where the remake is truly better. I'd been wanting to play Fantasian for years, but unfortunately I did not have an available Apple device to pay the subscription required to play it. Fortunately, someone told the Final Fantasy XVI studio to port a good game instead, and we got Fantasian Neo Dimension. The three gimmicks of Fantasian are thus. One is its look. Physical scan models make up the pre-rendered backgrounds and areas used to explore the world. While doing so, you have the Dimension, which allows for random encounters to be collected as you explore, and then can fight them all as one large battle after filling up the limit or choosing to whenever you want. You're gaining more EXP and money for battles in the process. And finally, the structure of the game is a gimmick in itself, but mostly because it's an artifact of how the original game released. Fantasian takes place over two parts, the first being a Chrono Trigger-esque roller coaster of rotating party members, wild story beats, and challenges based on what tools you have at the time. The second part of the game is a free-form, end of Final Fantasy-like game that requires changing up skills, party member configurations, and finding story beats on the world map and everywhere else as the characters figure out their place in the wild universe that's been created. A toy box in which two beings are fighting over control, fitting given the toy and model-like nature of the world itself. It's a game that sells itself on its aesthetic and excellent battle system. It's a challenging game, but it's one I'm glad to have played now, given that it's available normally.
This is one of those situations this year where I compromised with myself. See, there are definitely better versions of this game than this particular one. However, it was the only one where I could play and appreciate the plot in at least some form, something that I may need to work on in the next few years. However, Emerald Dragon is one of those games considered a classic, and it may seem odd at first, given this particular port's look and feel. It's a compromised port, being the port of a PC Engine Super CD-ROM game that in itself is a remake of a PC-88 RPG. The story is of a dragon boy, Atrushan, who promises to protect a girl, Tamarin, raised by dragons from a shipwreck, who goes off to live among humans only to find them terrorized by a Dark Lord, in a world where dragons cannot exist without taking human form. Tamarin learns her own place in the world, and who she really is, and Atrushan does all he can to protect her. It really is just one of those games, as one plays it and sees just how much actually comes from it. Everything one might look for in a game from today is here too, in this compromised Super Famicom port of a 1989 PC RPG. The moment in which the two fall from the Demon Lord's castle and embrace each other on the beach is a striking moment for me, as well as the end of the game where all things regarding Tamarin are revealed, and what is being asked of the party at the very end when the Emerald Dragon is reformed. Excellent video game, and one I will be coming back to in some time to play a version less compromised by the limitations of cartridges. Hey, that's a pretty good set so far. I played a lot of longer games this year, so we're going to see a lot of RPGs. That's fine though, I like RPGs. I like other things too. Here's some other stuff that was pretty good. The first game I played this year was Sonic Superstars, and it was a pretty good time. There's a lot of music in this game I did not like, but there's a lot of it I also liked. I also found the levels to be mostly pretty good, but some of the bosses could be shorter. I finally played through DID Napper, which is a cute little RPG with a cute little setup. Those who know. In my desire to play more PS2 action games, I played Genji Dawn of the Samurai, and it was pretty good. I wasn't exactly sure what I was getting into with this one, but once I learned it's more of an Onimusha than Dynasty Warriors, I was able to have a pretty good time here. More than enough to want to play the PS3 sequel, so I'm planning on doing that this next year. I slammed through Hello Kitty Roller Rescue on a couple of streams, and this was a little too much fun. It's a cute action platformer that goes way too many places than a Hello Kitty game should go. But along the way, you get to learn Hello Kitty facts and unlock cute dresses, so it's a perfect video game. I put off Faerun 2 for way too long, and finally played through it. It's good. I think I still like the first game more, but I enjoyed the late game stuff here a lot. Definitely worth grabbing the Faerun collection. They're all good. I had a massive Pokemon binge late this year after grabbing a Switch 2, and wound up playing both Pokemon Scarlet again, and finally playing Pokemon Legends Arceus. Wound up reminding me how much I love Scarlet's story, and while Legends Arceus was good, I do find I like Scarlet a lot more anyway. I did grab Legends ZA, but I have not played much into it yet. Citra is one of my favorite indie developers these days, so I always drop everything when a new game from them is released. Tori Saturn is a wild little video game that really shows off what Citra has been working towards this whole time, making their own Sonic Adventure 2, which is a good goal for anyone really. Give this a play, it's so much fun. Dot hack is something I appreciate, but also something I keep at a distance for my own nostalgia. But I had a moment this year when I needed it, and wound up playing through Dot Hack GU Last Recode. All parts, straight through. I had a great time with it, and it got me through a moment.
A phenomenon known as depopulation, wherein the number of players suddenly decreases, has been occurring in numerous online games. The Network Administration Bureau's investigation on the subject has yet to determine the cause.
What a remake. Taking on what is one of the strongest RPGs ever, Trails in the Sky, and giving it the Daybreak battle system is an incredible idea, but it's also an incredible undertaking. Trails in the Sky is one of the most loved RPGs for those who've played it, and I'm among them. I love the simple joy of the journey between two teens who slowly come to appreciate one another as they face the seemingly unrelated challenges they face in becoming adults,
in their own right, learning about their place in the world with each other, and coming to a decision at the end that ultimately leads them to their own chosen fates. It's a story about a nation coming to terms with their place in the world as well, and the factions that form a conspiracy that threaten to turn everything around. The dangers of nationalism, fear of the unknown, and the constant improvement of technology and the troubles it causes. It also stars a spunky twin-tail girl with a big stick. I played this in Nightmare mode, and took my time appreciating the world, handling the quests, and soaking in Liberal for the first time in a long time. Everything about this remake is solid, with a little exception to the punch and writing that the original version's localization had. It's missing here. Fortunately, this is a situation where both versions are delivering a very different game, as the battle system of this one is the Daybreak system, which means flowing in and out of combat to strategically give an advantage on the field, while taking on bosses in pure turn-based combat is the deal here. One of the most fun RPGs to come out this year, and a story worth experiencing no matter what version you play. Although, there is another Falcom game I played this year that, while compromised, I think is something special. If someone told me The Legend of Heroes: A Tear of Vermilion was their favorite RPG of all time, I would believe them. Another compromise, much like Emerald Dragon, this is a 2005 PSP port of a Windows remake of a PC-98 RPG from Falcom. Even so, this is a game that shines. A Tear of Vermilion follows youths Avon, Mile, and Brutus, searching for the pieces of a fallen god, and, at the same time, Avon's long-lost sister, hidden away from a cult that wishes to use her latent power as the daughter of the demigod Durga to bring about the revival of a rival god, all in a religious war between two factions in a battle between the god of light and darkness. All the while, another man is hunting down the followers of both light and darkness, whose actions resulted in the death of his lover, the former daughter of Durga. However, Avon doesn't care for either, he only cares about his sister. Now for the compromise. This is not the original story that was told in the first version, but one that is formed from the pieces of that game. Nor is it the same game at all. This is a linear, straightforward RPG with a pretty easy set of challenges to tackle, though the final section of the game is quite long and is built up properly throughout the quest. The game takes its time exploring the relationships of the characters that cycle in and out of the party, as well as the villains chasing down the party throughout, and explores the world outside of itself only a little, though there is a sense of more happening outside of this particular continent, all culminating into the final battle between what is ultimately chaos and order, rather than evil or good, and the representation of the thoughts and prayers of all people, A Tear of Vermilion. However, the original game is a much more interesting beast, a game that requires a lot of exploration and quest completion to grind up and handle the challenges along the main route. A friend of mine played the PC-98 version while I played the PSP port, and I wound up finishing long before they did. Even so, the story differences we discussed were wild. Even though we ultimately explored the same place, we wound up in different worlds. Which comes to the thought, what is the definitive experience? Why do we discuss what the definitive experience is? Is it possible that all experiences of a game are valid in their own right? Through Tear of Vermilion, Emerald Dragon, and even Trails in the Sky, is one story being interpreted in different ways an overall bad thing? The video games are an interesting medium in that remaking something is a viable thing. While a lot of this is in the uninteresting spirit of modernization, I don't think that's the only thing. A different interpretation through mechanics, plot progression, and presentation can bring about a different viewpoint of the world presented, and even a reflection of the changing values and ideologies in someone's perspective. I would argue that all of those experiences are valid though, and the original or the remake should not replace the other. They are all different works. Canon be damned.
Along with those new things, I needed to give a couple of highlights to 3 specific re-releases that came out this year, because more people really do need to play these.
Ys Memoir, The Oath in Felghana is a re-release that I think is finally the definitive console experience of that game. Sorry, PSP. If you've not played this remake of Ys 3 yet, you should absolutely do so, and then go play Ys 3 anyway too, because they're very different games telling a similar story. I've only played the first game so far in this collection, but Lunar Remastered Collection is quite good. The new voice acting might put off those who are used to the Working Designs cast, but I think they're doing a good performance overall. I'm looking forward to playing my favorite Lunar game again on this collection next year. Finally, the game I played the most this year, Xenoblade X Definitive Edition. I love this game. It's probably one of my picks for favorite modern video game, and it's my favorite open world video game. It was my game of the year in 2015 though, and I can't put it as my game of the year for this year. However, it's at least up there, and this is maybe a case for a version that is a definitive improvement over the original. Okay, even I could use a bit of modernization, especially for something released on the first HD consoles.
Usually I have a disappointments list to go along with these games of the year, but I gotta be honest, I don't really have any significant ones this year. But I have just two little tiny ones.
This one is extremely minor, because this is actually an incredible collection and it mostly runs pretty good. But the Atari 50 collection does front-load a lot of information with only a little bit of stuff I don't know about, mainly the Lynx and Jaguar having a little less information than I'd like. Though, that could be only because there's really not as much going on there than what's actually shown. Unfortunate, because I discovered I like Cybermorph more than I should.
Well done.
My other one is Clair Obscur Expedition 33. I put 8 hours into this one and kind of dropped it in favor of replaying .hack GU instead. I did not like what the combat was doing, especially with dodging, parrying, and the number of singular character mechanics. However, I have heard everything about this game, except for where its plot goes, which I was enjoying. So I'm going to give this another chance a little after time has passed and the conversation is less toxic about it. When the Switch 2 was properly announced, this was the standout major game that stood out to me over all the others. I wound up grabbing the system on launch and had some trouble with it that required me to send it back and get a new one, but it turned out to be worth it grabbing Donkey Kong Bonanza a few weeks later, as this is possibly the best 3D platformer to come out of Nintendo since Super Mario 3D World and Super Mario Galaxy. While seemingly simple, the mechanics of being able to break the world around Donkey Kong creates a need to just go around and hit things. Exploration is seamless. It feels good to just move around, climb walls, ceilings, grates, jump, roll jump, and move around the world, and that's before the transformations. The gimmick is Pauline, and her songs transforming DK into different forms, giving him new abilities for each. From just being stronger to moving faster, gliding, jumping higher, and even faster destruction. These allow for solving puzzles using the central mechanic of destroying things, and shaping the world around DK. The story seems simple enough at first, but comes to a head towards the end when it decides to go all out in a deserved fan service for old and new fans of Mario and Donkey Kong, and builds up to an incredible finale that we still can't talk about because it's just that good. It has to be experienced. Vagrant Story was the hardest video game I beat this year. and is one of my new favorite games for the PlayStation. Following Riskbreaker Ashley Riot into the catacombs and ruined cities of Vagrant Story requires learning and experimenting with mechanics and cheesing various late-game bosses to do what you want to do to them. And I had a hell of a time doing it. Everything about this game, the presentation, the graphics, the character models, the music, the area designs, it all comes together to form a hell of a work. While admittedly, the plot itself isn't anything to write home about, the presentations and themes of powerful entities attempting to maintain or gain control over each other through the works of the little people, Ashley's own mind and his supposed demons, and the ultimate fate of the Grand Grimoire and those who wield it, elevate the whole thing for me. This is a culmination of this particular era of video games, and a new favorite that I want to go back to and break even further.
There's always stuff that I hate keeping off the list, but didn't quite hit it. These are the runners-up, the special mentions, the stuff that almost made the top 10.
I'm not a Suikoden lover. I'm not a hater either, but I picked up Eden Chronicle 100 Heroes for cheap last year and had a really good time with it. Has a lot of good little dungeon interactions and some really good boss fights. The large battles give a good sense of scale for the conflict being told, and while it's nothing amazing, it's a solid piece of work that I'd take more of. Threads of Fate is a game I needed to play for a long time, since a long time ago, I went on some dates with a girl who said this was her favorite game of all time. I can see it. I played both routes, and I had a really good time with it, aside from one troublesome boss in the reroute. We won't talk about that. Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth Hacker's Memory is another game I needed to play for a long time. I love Cyber Sleuth, and picked this up when it came out, but wound up dropping it. It may have just come out at the wrong time. That happens sometimes. Nonetheless, I'm really glad to have played through it now. Such a strong narrative throughout, with some great moments. Right after finishing this, Time Stranger was announced, so maybe I'll grab that sometime next year or so. Rants 2: The Rebellious Maidens. Played the original version. It's probably the funniest game I played this year. If you know, you know. Dabbling into Japanese PC games with the availability of Project Egg has been fun, and the Scheme is a great discovery. What's basically a simple search action game with keys and locks, it's basically a delivery system for two really good Yuzo Koshiro albums. Play this for the music at least. Oh, and map it yourself for a good time. Speaking of search action, a surprising discovery was learning how much I like Castlevania Lament of Innocence. Basically proving that anyone who said Castlevania in 3D was bad is absolutely wrong. It's a dungeon crawler of 6 areas connected to a hub, and while it's definitely made under budget at the time, it's got a pretty solid combo system and some great boss fights. My favorite of the PS2 action games I played this year. I continue my descent into Silent Hill with the second game. While I didn't love it as much as the first one, I still really liked it, and the story it presented. I also like hitting things in these games, so I wound up fighting most of the enemies anyway. They can't be there if they're already beaten. Looking forward to 3 next year, and probably F later on. Finally, you ever play a video game and go, oh yeah, that's one of the greatest to ever do it? That's Dragon Quest III, which I have been putting off for years, but I finally played the Super Famicom version. Hell of a game. Not quite my favorite Dragon Quest, I definitely think 4 is the stronger game, but I understand why it's so beloved. I definitely want to play the other versions of it now too. So I bought a Switch 2 at launch, and I've been pretty pleased with it overall. Hell, it's become my main console now for modern releases, and I think that'll stay true overall from now on. Upon getting the system, I had an issue the day after where the system would not read Switch 2 cards at all. This was an issue because I wanted to play the one Switch 2 launch game I got, Rune Factory Guardians of Ozma. Getting this in my hands took a bit of time, but fortunately it turned out to be an incredible game. Guardians of Ozma is a spin-off game of the series, kind of like Frontiers and Tides of Destiny, but it's very much a follow-up to the plot threads of 3, 4, and 5. Following either one of two members of a clan that seeks to restore runes back to the land of Ozma, both are locked to the souls of ancient dragons and are forced to fight for control over the heart of the dragon that fell from the sky. Meanwhile, another faction looks to steal that exact thing to restore a fallen empire. While this sounds like an epic, what it really is doing is setting up for an excellent town builder and light management sim, along with the usual Rune Factory farming, dungeon crawling, monster raising, and begatting one would usually do in a game like this. I love the whole cast overall, and found the side stories with each of them to be mostly refreshing and far more interesting than they can be sometimes. As a dungeon crawler, it feels great to play and control. Rotating party members out of 6 feels great, and the combat flow feels really good, if not a bit easy. Play in hard mode for more challenge. Overall, this is an incredible improvement for Rune Factory, even though I am kind of a fan of 5 still. Guardians of Ozma is a continuation of the themes of Rune Factory, where community is a positive, and the cycle of life is paramount to nature working, and proves to me that the series is in great hands today. Daybreak 1 was on my list last year, and while I'll still say I enjoyed it more than Reverie, I wasn't as high as I thought I would be on it. Not necessarily a disappointment, but more of a, yeah, I expected about this. Which was still pretty good, and I love the battle system. That being said, I like Daybreak 2 a whole lot more. I like Daybreak 2 so much it made me appreciate both Daybreak 1 and Reverie a lot more. And I think Daybreak 2 puts into perspective as to what Reverie was starting to build towards. Daybreak 2 is basically take everything that worked in Reverie and expand upon it. Separate the cast up into smaller episodes, build up the character developments and interactions even more so, give even more Swin and Nadia, my favorite additions to the cast in Reverie, and also a highlight here once again. Put Vaughn, Agnes, Fairy, Aaron, Rosette, and Judith through the ringer once again, in an even more complex mystery that forces timeline shenanigans, facing their individual and personal demons, and ultimately learning more about the world around them and each other. With other additions to the main cast for this one, it makes for a hell of a party that cycles through various combinations and forces one to handle real good boss fights with the tools you have. Admittedly, I'm not actually that into the overall plot of the Trail series. I find them best played as singular games that reference each other often. You should still play them in order, but allowing a story to settle down on all that stuff in the background allows them to get a little crazier with the scenario. I appreciated the ride, as it led into what is probably my favorite final boss this year. Daybreak 2 does have issues. It's a little long and has some padding throughout, and it does have an entire act devoted to some wild stuff, but I liked that stuff a whole lot. And I thought it kept interesting throughout, which, yes, does make Daybreak 2 my second favorite game I played this year, and my favorite game to come out this year. I cannot wait for Beyond in January.
Cosmic Fantasy! Cosmic Fantasy! Cosmic Boy! 君の瞳のきらめきは宇宙に広がる銀河の光不可能なんてないさ何も怖くはないさ向かないで瞳を上げて
This shouldn't surprise anyone. Cosmic Fantasy is a Telenet-produced, LaserSoft-developed PC Engine RPG series that ran through 1990 to 1994. I wound up playing the first game last year and talked about it then. This year I wound up playing through the rest, and I wish I was able to do so sooner. In what's probably the biggest compromise I made to myself this year, I wound up playing through these with the Idea collections, with the physical copies being from limited run games. One could say that was a problem, but they wound up being cheaper that way with shipping. Admittedly, these collections are pretty bare bones for the cost, and while the appeal really here is playing these games in English, there probably should be more to it than that for the asking price of $50 and $55 for the two collections. That being said, Cosmic Fantasy 2, 3, and 4 are incredible little experiences. At their core, they are simple RPGs with interesting ideas for battle mechanics that don't always work out. This isn't a Squaresoft or Enix published game at the time. These are coming from a different side of the RPG production range than those. These games care first and foremost about their presentations, their plot, and their characters, while using the RPG as a base, experimenting with cool ideas at the same time. Cosmic Fantasy 2 is a step up from the first game in every way, introducing a new set of characters and a new setting, building slowly to a climax that brings together the cast of 1 and 2 in a battle for Van's home planet and his childhood friend Larla. Cosmic Fantasy 2 features a quick battle system where commands and animations play quickly, although the time to get into and out of battle is much faster in the collection releases for all of these, where characters can go in any order between player and enemy turns. Van and Rim are fantastic additions to the cast of the first game and are both highlights plot-wise. The ending is also not necessarily a happy one. Cosmic Fantasy 3 is a prequel to the series, featuring Ray, a boy with psychic powers who gets roped into an adventure with the Catboy merchant Mian for 7 mysterious stones, all while coming to terms with Ray's powers, meeting Mai and her brother Daigo, and stopping a plot to change the future. Cosmic Fantasy 3 is probably the scariest of the games at first, as the field areas are no longer world maps but massive interconnected zones with multiple towns and rest zones in each, and a high encounter rate. The encounters are scarier too, featuring multiple attack options that allow characters to combine their attacks or follow each other up in different ways. The main tip I have is to learn how to use counterattacks, as they're the secret to defeating some of the bosses. That being said, I found this one to be the easiest of the games in the end, as the areas do not get that big towards the end, and the encounters are much easier when the party has 4 characters. However, this is my favorite plot-wise, and it ends on a specific note that really got me. And finally, Cosmic Fantasy 4 is actually 2 games, one for you and Saya, and the other one for Van and Rim, primarily, as they each go on different quests to cap off the series. This one is the most interesting one battle mechanics-wise, as it adopts an active time battle system that has bars that must be filled for a character to an attack or make a turn. However, that turn can be taken at any time when the bar is filled, and the bar can fill twice, which is a requirement for higher tier spells and greater attack strength. Attack magic can also be cast onto characters, and will combine into the next attack magic skill used by that target character, if compatible. These are the easy ways to slash through a few of the bosses in the late game, and are my main tips, as these are the hardest games in the series. I will say, the plot of Cosmic Fantasy 4 does wrap up pretty quickly. However, I do think they end well, and they do cap off a series that I'm going to be inspired by for years to come. Cosmic Fantasy is not a wild trail story in scope. However, it is a series that loves its characters, and wants to see them grow and develop into something better at the end. Yu's longing for the family he barely knows, Saya's struggle to meet the expectations of her ancestors, Rim trying to make her place in the universe, and Van's guilt of the things he could not accomplish, believing himself to not be allowed love. These are the things Cosmic Fantasy, through all of its tropes, smutty scenes, and silliness, and RPG mechanics, explores through the 4 games. And this is ultimately what the series is about. That makes Cosmic Fantasy special, and my game of the year of 2025. And that's it once again. So a lot of longer games were played this year, and honestly with my habits, I don't see that changing for the next. I'm already looking forward to more Trails, an interesting looking Dragon Quest remake, and even a Fire Emblem. Not to mention going back further and playing old stuff still. As much as there's a lot of doom and gloom around the state of the industry, as I get older I find myself caring a lot less about that. The stuff I like isn't necessarily going away. Plus, more projects and translations are being done, so that there's more to experience than ever. Though, I find myself wanting to be more proactive in making sure things work, and even wanting to expand myself in learning new things, to make my own work, or to just experience things in new ways.
We still got a lot to do and a lot to experience, so I hope you all enjoyed this simple reflection of a weird 2025, and hope with me that 2026 will at least be a little bit better. Hopefully.
皆さん、足が